Hump Day Wednesday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. I am Josh Hennig, back with you again. We got to get to the latest with the Eagles in the NFL, and the Sixers are back in action tonight when they play the Miami Heat again. We'll see how that goes. Coverage begins at 7:30 tonight. Tom McGinnis on the call right here on your home for Sixers, Eagles, and Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. As always, you can join the conversation as well at 609-403-0973. Coming up in about 12 minutes now, we'll talk with Dave Weinberg for this week's edition of Weinberg Wednesday. But before we get to Dave, before we get your text at 609-403-0973 and your DMs in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Before we get to all of that, I want to get to one of the things that I think are one of the most important takeaways from this week so far. And it in part starts with the deleted tweet by C.J. Gardner-Johnson. For those who don't know the full story, C.J. Gardner-Johnson basically put out on Twitter and later deleted it, that basically criticizing John Gannon. And remember, I told you guys yesterday about the subtle things that Nick Sirianni was saying to the media in his press conference. And look, do I think that C.J. Gardner-Johnson should have put the tweet out there that he did? No. Okay. And I'm sure his agent told him, dude, delete that tweet. And basically, it was a quote tweet of a John Gannon comment, where basically Gannon was saying that, about what went wrong in the Super Bowl. And Garner's response was, quote, "You ain't put us in a position to make plays," and then the shoulder shrug emoji. He would later go on to delete the tweet. And the reason why I bring up the tweet is because of the fact that C.J. Gardner-Johnson, in many ways, symbolizes this NFL offseason. This NFL offseason is going to be two completely countering forces happening. On one hand, you're going to have people who will want to have honest conversations. You are going to want to have people who want to talk about the what ifs, what should have happened, what could have happened, and all these different things. On the flip side, you have people who they want to go out, they want to get paid, they're free agents. And it's so difficult for professional athletes today to bridge that gap between speaking their mind and using social media and having podcasts and YouTube shows and vlogs and all these different ways for them to express themselves and put themselves out in public in ways that we never had 20, 30 years ago. They love it. And I don't know how many times I have heard from former athletes who said, man, I wish I would have had some of this stuff when I was playing. But the downside of it is when you're that open and that honest and that out front, it puts you in a position to potentially look bad. Just look what's going on with the situation with one of the top prospects in the NFL draft. It's not any team's fault that it played out like this, but it definitely feels for a lot of teams, I'm sure, very frustrating that these misdemeanor charges came out against Jalen Carter the day he was supposed to speak to the media. Now, I choose not to buy into some of the online speculation, but basically he has been issued 2 misdemeanor warrants for his arrest, stemming from the situation around the January 15th crash that killed his teammate and a Georgia team staffer. Now, it should be noted that Carter is in a difficult situation because on one hand, he wanted to stay at the combine this week, do the working out, maybe meet some more people, talk with some more people. But instead, he's putting out on Twitter, probably a statement that was helped to write 4 hours ago, basically saying, he's going to talk more about it and that he expects to be exonerated. But this is the downside of the athlete today. CJ Gardner-Johnson said nothing wrong. And the fact that we have to talk about him being penalized for what he said being wrong, in and of itself is disingenuous. We want our athletes to be honest. We want our athletes to be outspoken. We want our athletes to give us unprecedented access. We want these athletes to give us something that we didn't have before. And then when they give it to us, they get punished. They get ostracized. They get whatever term you want to use for it. And I think it's very, very slippery slope we're on, because the reason why people like Kyrie Irving feel the way they do about the media and the fans is because people like the media say these, for lack of a better term, disingenuous things like, I would tell CJ Gardner-Johnson when our players accountable. It can't always be the coaches. And the problem is the people who are saying that are not seeing what I'm seeing, what you listening to the sound of my voice on 97.3 ESPN FM or listening on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. What we are seeing, what we are observing is that there were things this Eagles season that they made mistakes about defensively. And a head coach said that you had different situations where the defense could have made adjustments earlier in the game. And those situations that happened earlier in the season came back to bite them when the best coaches in the NFL took advantage of you. You didn't make the right adjustments. So I don't blame CJ Gardner-Johnson for saying what he said. I think he said nothing wrong. But the fact that we're turning this into one of the players being held accountable conversation, or CJ shouldn't have tweeted that because now he might lose money on the free agent market. It's really sad that that is the spiral we have fallen down. The athlete has been told they can't have their cake and eat it too. The athlete has been told, don't talk unless we want you to talk, unless you say what we want you to say. That's the problem with this whole thing. CJ Gardner-Johnson said nothing wrong. Everything he said in that tweet was correct. And nobody can tell me otherwise. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the people who are saying otherwise are people who have agendas. And we know what happens in a world full of agendas. It's called politics. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Seattle. We'll talk with Dave Weinberg for this week's Weinberg Wednesday, coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget Sixers basketball tonight. Take you on the Miami Heat at 7:30.
You haven't downloaded the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app? Well, go get it now to follow all the Philly sports teams at 97.3ESPN.com. Powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Your morning coffee. Hot, delicious, and oh so comforting. But by the third or fourth cup, your stomach might not feel so good. If that sounds like you, replace your afternoon cup with 5 Hour Energy. It's perfect for those times when you're feeling coffeeed out. Remember, coffee in the morning, 5 Hour Energy after. Your stomach will thank you. Discover 5 Hour Energy. For more information, visit 5hourenergy.com. Hey,
Hey, y'all, this is your girl, Cheryl Underwood, and I want to tell you something. My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but those days are over. Now I feel great. That's because I increased my fiber intake with the Metamucil 2-week challenge, and I'm still hooked. I just took Metamucil every day for 14 days, and it's really that easy. Metamucil traps and removes the waste that weighs you down, so you feel lighter and more energetic. Now I never want to go back to that heavy feeling. Are you ready for the Metamucil 2-week challenge? For a coupon and daily support, sign up at Metamucil.com today.
3 people you should be 100% certain about: your barber, your plumber, and your tax pro. Switch to Jackson Hewitt and you can be 100% certain about your taxes. We'll get you your maximum refund guaranteed, and we'll back your return for life. Don't be kind of certain or almost certain. Be 100% certain. Switch to Jackson Hewitt today and get 50% off tax prep. Limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
Searching for fun ways to spend your tax return? Boats for cats. Oh, flotation devices for cats. Don't waste it all on something silly. Spend smarter with Straight Talk. Get our Silver Unlimited plan for $45 a month with unlimited high-speed data and with nationwide 5G. Plus, get a Samsung A13 5G for only $99.99, down from $149. If you're looking to get the most out of your refund, your search ends here. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See latest terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
Did you know that over 90% of male enhancement pills are virtually the same thing that's repackaged, redone over and over again? Why settle for the same old product when you can get something completely different? Something that takes male enhancement into the 21st century. Something that really works. Men, you need to try Noxitril, the explosive, all-natural male enhancement formula that will unlock your performance in the bedroom to a level you could only dream of. Try to imagine Viagra on steroids. Noxitril is so powerful, that's why it took years for it to finally become available to the public without a prescription. So call now and take advantage of our special Noxitril free bottle offer today. Oh yeah, we recommend that you use the Noxitril dose as directed. Think of your partner. We certainly don't want you to overperform in the bedroom.
Call now and find out how to get a free bottle of Noxitril while supplies last. Call 1-800-992-9470. Free bottles for a limited time, so call now. 800-992-9470. That's 800-992-9470.
Progressive presents Adjusting to the Suburbs.
I never really thought about tools until I bought a house in the suburbs. It's like this weird homeowner test if I need a tool for a project and don't have it. And my neighbor Ted loves to give me that look when I ask to borrow a pole saw. A year ago, I didn't even know pole saws existed. And now I gotta borrow one from Ted? What is happening?
Anyway, when you save with Progressive by bundling your home and auto, that's the easy part of adjusting to the suburbs. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliates and third-party insurers.
3 little words no parent wants to hear.
My tummy hurts.
And it always seems to happen at the worst times. Like in the middle of the morning rush, when you still have homework to check and lunches to pack, and of course, you're already late for work. Luckily, there's Pepto Kids. Pepto Kids chewables provide fast relief for common stomach issues, turning those 3 words into these 3 words.
I feel better.
Bad time for stomach upsets? Good time for Pepto Kids chewables. Fast relief for little tummies. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, big guy. Simple credibility approval.
Listen, big guy, try this. Give them more cash for their clunker.
That was my idea.
Why pay more when you can pay 0% with 0 down? So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia. Because if you have a job clearing $350 per week, Matt Blatt Kia wants to approve you. Even with 0 down and 0% APR financing for 36 months. Don't see your new Kia on the lot today? That doesn't mean you can't drive it home tomorrow with peace of mind. Matt Blatt Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
Rate qualifications exist with approved credit. $27.78 per thousand financed on in-stock 2023 Sorrento Hybrid. Not all will qualify. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Expires 3/3/23. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Let's get more into the Eagles offseason right now, as the good news is we finally know who the coordinators are going to be for the Eagles next season as they go into a very interesting offseason. Dave Weinberg covered the Eagles over the course of 3 decades, and of course he writes about Eagles and more over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Extra point columns. Hey, doing this every Wednesday for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, welcome back in. Appreciate you jumping on. How you doing?
Doing well, Josh. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So I want to get your thoughts or reaction to the new Eagles coordinators, Brian Johnson. Most people expected it. Sean Desai. I think half the listeners have no idea who he is, but he is the new DC.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Johnson certainly was expected, and that was a good move. You got to keep Jalen Hurts happy. And the fact that he has a relationship with Jalen is, pretty important. You want your coordinator to be as close to the quarterback as possible. If you want the offense to continue to run relatively smoothly, and it seems like it will. So, yeah, I thought that was a really good move. As far as defensive, I don't really know. I'm one of those guys who doesn't know who he is. Sorry. I mean, I know he's with Seattle. Most recently, he was with the Bears for a little while. Knows Philly a little bit because he coached at Temple a few years back. But I'm just gonna be interested to see, what kind of impact he has on the defense. If he's, implements his own system, or if he's kind of told above what to do. I'm curious to see how that all unfolds.
Well, I think what was interesting to me about Desai, because I don't know how much you had to hear about what the pressers was said yesterday, but I'll just repeat it for you, Dave, and everybody listening out there. Maybe to get to hear the audio yesterday. But Sirianni multiple times talked about how smart and intelligent Desai is, like his football intelligence, and and then earlier in the day, Pete Carroll, for those who don't remember, broke the news that Desai was getting the Eagles job. He broke it during his presser, which was hilarious. But Pete mentioned multiple times how much he learned from Sean Desai and how intelligent he is. And what I'm hearing kind of like slip between the cracks here, Dave, is people in the league. I mean, he went through 3 coaching staffs in Chicago and they kept him on. People around the league think very highly of this guy's football intelligence. I think for that reason, I'm willing to give him more than a chance, because if Pete Carroll and John Fox and Matt Nagy and Nick Sirianni all think this guy is like really smart, well, who am I to say he doesn't know what he's doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, they certainly know more than us, right? And I'd agree with that. I mean, Sean certainly deserves the opportunity. I think I might have gone with somebody who's been a defensive coordinator somewhere. I mean, I guess he was with Chicago for a year, right? Yeah. Okay. I think I might have gone with more of a veteran guy, but that's the way the league is trending nowadays. You want young, up and coming coordinators. So yeah, I mean, I have nothing against the move. Like I said, it's just going to be interesting to see how he, if he's as intelligent as everybody says, and I guess he'll have no problem, putting the right pieces together for the Eagles defense. So I'll be curious to see if he can do it.
And of course, me putting pieces together, Dave, that I've been critical of John Gannon when he was here in Philadelphia. And
me too.
Listen, Sirianni said twice this past season the defense took too long to make adjustments in games. And I have to wonder, is part of the reason why this guy Desai got the job is because Sirianni maybe wants somebody who's maybe a little more proactive in that department?
Could be. Yeah, it could be. I mean, if he's more aggressive, or a little more, like you said, quick on his feet, maybe that certainly should help. I mean, that seemed to be Jonathan's weakness. Although, I mean, if you look at the stats and stuff, they had a pretty good defense. That could be because of personnel more than Gannon's system. But I guess it's pretty clear that they wanted to go at least like a slightly different route. And if he's, like you said, if he's quick on his feet, that should help them, I would think. Avoid some of the passive mistakes that they made during the season.
Speaking of Gannon's defense, I don't know if you got to see it, but the CJ Garner-Johnson now deleted tweet where he rips in the Gannon. It's a catch-22 though, Dave, because before you came on, I was saying we want our athletes to be open and honest and be out there and give opinions. And then when they do, everyone rips them apart, and now he's got to take down a tweet. Like, I feel like these guys just can't win sometimes.
Honestly, Josh, I lost a lot of respect for him for doing that.
Really?
I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I did. I don't see, kicking the guy after he's gone. I mean, if he was still the coordinator, you wouldn't be doing it because you'd still want to play there. I just don't. I don't believe in like throwing people under the bus, especially your coaches. I mean, it's a team game. You win, you lose as a team. I know that's kind of cliche, but I think it's really true. And he certainly didn't. And I know he took down the tweet, but it's already out there. I mean, just because you delete it doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. And opposing teams are going to see that. He's a free agent. I don't think he did himself any favors. That's for sure.
I do agree with that. I do think that he lost himself some money out in the market for sure. I just feel like we live in a world where we want these athletes to be open and honest. And it's like when they are, people criticize them, I think, a little too quickly. I think that's my thing because, I mean, again, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the guy who doesn't see the forest for the trees. I just think that, what he said wasn't wrong, but maybe he could have waited like 2 months until after he got a contract signed and then said like on a podcast or something.
Yeah, or just say, everybody had a bad game. Me, Darius Slay, the entire defense, and the coordinator. We all shared in the blame for the loss. I mean, don't just single out. That's why those two guys were wide open, because the coordinator didn't put you in the right position. Give me a break. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like they're just trying to throw the blame on somebody that I know he deserves a large part of it, but not all of it.
All right, fair. That's very fair. With that being said, are you going into the offseason if you're Howie Roseman and telling CJ, hey man, how much you willing to take a doc for that because of what you put out on Twitter? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, now, I think it's going to cost them some bucks, like you said. I mean, people are going to say, well, how come we count on you to not, do it if we give you more money? And, I'm going to be anxious to see what happens here with free agency, how other teams treat him and how the Eagles treat him now.
How does he stack up in your priority list for the offseason?
With the Eagles?
Yeah.
Pretty high, honestly. Only because he had an outstanding season, no doubt about it, and they need as much consistency in the secondary as they can get. You need your safeties to be pretty reliable and the leaders of that secondary, and he certainly proved that he is that. So I would do. I mean, I'm not going to break the bank for him or anything, but I think he's a very important part of that defense.
I'm getting to the point. The reason why I asked Dave is I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to wonder, is he more important than a lot of other guys? Because the Eagles have a history of finding guys in the trenches, right? I mean, they have a long history of getting offensive and defensive linemen. So, like, I know losing Hargrave would hurt, but I feel like that you can maybe find a way to make that work. I think it's a lot harder to find people like CJ Gardner-Johnson than it is to find another Hargrave. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. I'm with you 100% there. Yeah. I mean, you might be able to find a stud on the first round of the draft, a defensive tackle, but I don't think you're going to find a safety that could fill those shoes that quickly. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think TJ Edwards is a pretty high priority too. I think he's an outstanding linebacker, and I would try to do everything I can to keep him too. He might be willing to take some sort of discount, considering the Eagles were the team that gave him the opportunity, being an undrafted free agent and stuff. Maybe he feels like he can kind of, I don't know, maybe have some sort of sense of loyalty there. I don't know, but those two guys were pretty high on my list anyway.
Yeah, finding good linebacker is harder at this point than finding good D linemen, I think, at least for the Eagles. Maybe some other team is really good at evaluating linebackers. I feel like the Eagles don't have that history. Like, they're so fortunate. They're so fortunate that Dean fell to them in the draft. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, I mean, this is an organization that drafted Barry Gardner, who could barely move at linebacker a couple decades ago, all because he played in the SEC. You know how the fan is. The fan says, "Oh, he played at Georgia, so he must be good," right? It's like,
well, I think Gardner played at Northwestern, but I got your point.
Right, well, Northwestern, right? But the point is that the person points to a conference and says, "So and so played in a conference. Yeah, 10, they must be good." And it's like, it doesn't work like that.
That's true. Very true. Yep.
I'm worried like you about how this team fills these voids, and I'm not saying Howie Roseman can't do it, but it's just the law of averages, right? Like Mike Gill made a comment previously, and I think I do agree with him on this, that Howie Roseman got so many things right last year that the odds of him getting as many things right this year, it just doesn't doesn't happen that way in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. He's probably due for a little bit of a slump. Although, I mean, you can't fault his decisions, most of his decisions anyway, over the past few years. I mean, I don't know. Do you blame him for Carson Wentz, or do you praise him that he was able to have good years when he was here? I don't know. I'm not
That's a
quite
great
sure
question.
what you do there, you know?
I mean, I think on one hand, Wentz for 2 years was legitimate, but he became, I've used this analogy, Dave. He became a pitcher who went from 98 to 92 and never figured out how to pitch around it. Like he never learned.
That's a good analogy.
After the back injury and then the head injury, the Clowney, he never learned how to say, hey, I got to do things a little differently. And because he never made that adjustment and because he became so stubborn, let's be realistic, he's not the most likable guy in the world. There's a lot of people who have said that about him. I think that Wentz doomed himself. So it's hard for me to blame Howie for a guy who, between injuries and self-sabotage, put himself in the situation he is in today.
Hey, that's a very good point about his attitude. Your stubborn's a perfect way to put it. He didn't seem very resistant to change, very resistant to adapt. Although, if you're really doing your homework, you might have seen that before you took him with the number 2 overall pick. I don't know, but yeah, it's yeah, you're right. I mean, Carson's physical abilities have been hampered, no doubt, but same thing with between the years, which is probably more important as important for a quarterback than it is the arm strength and what have you.
You know, Dave, it's interesting you brought up Wentz because I go back to this thought. You know, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day about like what are some of the greatest what ifs in Philadelphia sports history, right? And I always think of you when that conversation comes up because you were dead fast. Now, hear me out for a second. You were dead fast and Foles over Wentz from the very beginning.
Yes.
You planted your flag and you told everybody who didn't agree with you basically a long walk on a short pier. And, you know, it was one of those things. But looking back on it, you have to wonder if the Eagles went with Foles instead of Wentz, how does history play out differently? Because you look at a team like the Rams, they traded Jared Goff. And then they won a Super Bowl. Now, the Eagles already won a Super Bowl with Foles, but it still is an interesting conversation to say, do they treat free agency differently? Do they treat the draft differently? There's so many dominoes that come off of these things.
Yeah, you're right there. Yeah, I mean, you certainly played a what-if game there. Yeah, and you're right. I was a big Nick supporter. I'm sorry to see his career turn out the way it has. I just wish I wish him nothing but the best. And, but yeah, it's, you kind of like hurt yourself though if you spend too much time on it. You know, you can't change the past, unfortunately. It would have been. It's nice to think of what might have been, but you know, the Eagles certainly they took the long way to it, but they seem to have really found their answer with Jalen Hurts, and I guess that's all that really matters.
Couple more with Dave Weinberg here on a Weinberg Wednesday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at Dave Weinberg 19 on Twitter. Extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, today Andrew Painter, he had a solid outing for the Phillies. You know, couple innings. You know, not bad. How do you feel about a guy that young, 19 turning 20, potentially being the team's number 5 starter?
Honestly, Josh, I don't think I'd do it. I think I don't know if he's ready for that kind of pressure. You know, he probably has the physical ability, but there's a lot more that goes into pitching in the major leagues than just your 99-mile-an-hour fastball. I think he probably needs a little more seasoning, a little more experience. So I would probably start him at AA or AAA, and then maybe call him up as you can. I mean, that's not to say that he doesn't deserve it if he keeps pitching the way he's been pitching, but 19 is really young, especially for a pitcher. I don't know. I can't remember one that's been that successful that young. I'm sure there have been, but I remember Strasburg coming up pretty early, but I think he had pitched in college first, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's really tough for a teenager to excel at that level, and I think they might be better off starting him in the minors. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, for me, my mind always goes to Doc Gooden because I mean, he was 19 when he came up to the majors as a rookie.
Okay.
But you could argue that because he came up so early and because he was in that crazy Mets locker room environment, that's what also doomed his career because of the immaturity and then the addiction.
Yeah, you're right there. I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot that goes into being a major leaguer, being able to handle that kind of pressure, being able to handle the attention, the temptations, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure he's got a very strong support system around him that'll evidently help. Doc probably didn't have that, but yeah, I don't know that he's quite ready for that yet. I mean, I guess if he earns it, you got to give him the shot. But I think, like I said, I think he'd be better served like starting in the minors a little bit, getting a little bit more experience down there.
Oh, I just double checked. Strasburg was 20, turning 21 when he came up to the major. So he was actually older than Painter is now. And Strasburg's first year in the majors, he had 12 starts with a 2.91 ERA. And the next year is when he blew out his arm for the first time. So
yeah, he was a stud. I remember when he first came up, man, everybody's like raving about him. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Strasburg is under the what if category too. I mean, some of these guys like him, like if they didn't get injured, what happens kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear Joe Nuxall, by the way?
Doesn't ring a bell, to be completely honest.
He was a long time radio or TV broadcaster for the Cincinnati Reds, but he actually pitched in the majors at 16 years old.
Looking him up right now as you talk about it. Yeah, he came up at 15 years old. And he didn't pitch again until he was 23.
Yeah. I think I don't know what the circumstances were, but I remember him actually being in a major league game instead of being in his sophomore year at high school or junior year or whatever.
Yeah, that'll never happen again.
No.
I mean, what was it? Freddie Adu is the kid who played soccer at like 15 years old or whatever it was.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
Yeah, we are never going to see the pre-18-year-old play pro sports ever again. I feel like the world is just completely gone away from that being a possibility ever again.
True. Yep. Very true. Yep.
And honestly, it's for the best. Like you said earlier, you know, these guys, they don't have the maturity. They don't have the life experience to handle certain things. And I'm not saying that a 21-year-old is that much better than a 19-year-old, but there's, you know, this is a professional job. Like you got to have some sort of, you know, track record to show that your employer is going to give you all this money for a reason.
Well, I guess basketball is the exception, right? You see teenagers in there all the time, but yeah, you're right there. By and large, it's both physically and mentally and emotionally, they're not really ready for that kind of attention. That's for sure.
Yeah, but the problem is with the high school and basketball, for every Kobe and LeBron you can name, there's also guys like Eddie Curry out there that nobody talks about.
So. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, I remember, you know, years ago, Lenny Cook was supposed to be the next big thing, and his life got sent sideways because he tried to go pro too fast. So,
yeah, too many make that mistake. Unfortunately, you're right.
He's Dave Weinberg at Dave Weinberg 19. Extra point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. He joins us each week for a Weinberg Wednesday. And as you notice today, folks, we don't always agree on things.
This is true. Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
Dave, always appreciate you jumping on. Take care.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it as always. Talk to you next week.
Game Night being brought to you by my friends over at Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, the plumbing guy. Just call Jenkins at 609-641-6440 for new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, gas furnaces, leak repairs, and more. That's 609-641-6440 or visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. We'll check in on the text board next at 609-403-0973. Jeff in Ocean City, your text and more coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Up and in. How does he do it? He doesn't create space. He's not by any means leaping over the defenders.
It's Sixers Heat tonight. Coverage begins at 7:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
And now, a poem for all you lovebirds out there. Getting down on getting down. Some cars are red, others are blue. Trade in your old car and drive something new.
Fall in love with your new Nissan at Matt Blatt Nissan with 0% financing for 36 months, 0 payments for 45 days, and 0 money down.
Oh, yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
So bring any trade because AJ, the trade man, wants to buy your vehicle today, regardless of the make, miles, or condition. AJ pays cash. Then treat yourself to a brand new Nissan Altima, Pathfinder, or Rogue, all with 0 down, 0 payments, 0 interest. Only Matt Blatt Nissan has a 4-day love it or leave it return policy. MattBlattNissan.com. Rate qualifications exist with approved credit $27.78 per thousand. Finance on in-stock 2023 Rogues. Pathfinder Ultima. Not all will qualify. Go to MattBlattNissan.com for complete details or call 844-917-4758. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes. VIN PC 739900. Rogue S. MSRP 31,185. Doc 589. Sell price 31,774. Expires 3/3/23. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike. Egg Harbor Township.
Mornings were made for better things than rheumatoid arthritis or RA. Xeljanz tofacitinib is a pill for adults with moderate to severe RA when tumor necrosis factor blockers did not work well or could not be tolerated. Xeljanz can help relieve joint pain, swelling, and help stop further joint damage. Xeljanz can lower your ability to fight infections. Don't start if you have one. Before and during treatment, your doctor should check for infections like TB and do blood tests. Serious, sometimes fatal infections, cancers including lymphoma and lung, blood clots, serious heart-related events, tears in the stomach or intestines, and allergic reactions have happened. People 50 and older with heart disease risk factors have an increased risk of death. Tell your doctor if you've had hepatitis B or C, have flu-like symptoms, are prone to infections, or have ever had a heart attack, stroke, clot, or other heart problems, or swelling of lips, tongue, throat, or hives. Ask your doctor about prescription Xeljanz. Visit Xeljanz.com or call 1-844-XELJANZ.
People who come to Cricket stay with Cricket, just like our customer, Michelle.
As an entrepreneur, every day is different. My phone bill from Cricket, on the other hand, always stays the same. Without surprises, hidden fees, or annual contracts, I can work worry-free.
That's Michelle, everybody, doing business like a boss. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Real customer paid for testimonial. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. Just go to this exclusive web address, ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Did you know that over 90% of male enhancement pills are virtually the same thing that's repackaged, redone over and over again? Why settle for the same old product when you can get something completely different? Something that takes male enhancement into the 21st century. Something that really works. Men, you need to try Noxitril, the explosive, all-natural male enhancement formula that will unlock your performance in the bedroom to a level you could only dream of. Try to imagine Viagra on steroids. Noxitril is so powerful, that's why it took years for it to finally become available to the public without a prescription. So call now and take advantage of our special Noxitril free bottle offer today. Oh yeah, we recommend that you use the Noxitril dose as directed. Think of your partner. We certainly don't want you to overperform in the bedroom.
Call now and find out how to get a free bottle of Noxitril while supplies last. Call 1-800-992-9470. Free bottles for a limited time, so call now. 800-992-9470. That's 800-992-9470.
At Ocean First Bank, our first thought is you. We put you first in all we do. Community banking for a century. We treat you like your family. Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Start the year off with a CD rate that, well, rates. For a limited time, we're offering a 13-month term for 4.5% APY with as little as $10,000. Don't delay. Visit oceanfirst.com for complete details.
Whatever you need, whatever you dream, let's make it a reality. Ocean First Bank, putting you first.
Certain rules and restrictions apply. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Opportunity Lender.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
It's your text over at 609-403-0973 and your DM to 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. Seattle VSiN basketball tonight, 7:30 on 973 ESPN in Miami. I mean, this road trip is ridiculous. They're going down to Miami, then they got to come to Dallas tomorrow, and then they got to go they got Minnesota and Indiana back-to-back days. They got Milwaukee in the middle. I mean, what a mess. This is one of my problems with the NBA. Who in their right mind thought this was a good idea? You're basically dooming a team to have a losing road trip when you do stuff like this. One of the DMs that came into the show, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app. James says, hey, Josh, do you think Denard Wilson should stay as defensive backs coach? And who do you think will be the new linebackers coach? So my position is that I think that Denard Wilson should stay, but I understand why he might not. Wilson is a guy who is thought very highly of by the players. He's a guy who was thought very well of, and there might be a part of him that looks at, Denard Wilson was obviously a guy in the conversation for this defensive coordinator job. And I don't know if he feels like Sean Desai getting that job may be a slap in the face to him or not. I'm not fully sure how he feels about it. I don't want to put words in his mouth. I've heard both sides of this conversation. Personally, I think he should stay with the Eagles. Unless he's going to get a better job elsewhere, I think that you hang around the Eagles one more year, you be part of a defense that could be potentially top 5, top 10 again in multiple categories. Then you are positioning yourself for another round of interviews next year. That's what I personally would do. Linebacker coach, to be perfectly frank, I have no idea. I don't know who is replacing Sean Rollins. Sean Desai is an interesting guy because his coaching background basically entails mostly just 3 stops in his entire career. All right. He was at Temple for a bunch of years right out of college after playing college ball. He had a long stint in Chicago, and then he had 1-year stints in Seattle and the University of Miami. And that's his entire career. So I can't speak to exactly who he would be interested in coming in and coaching. I'm assuming it's probably going to be, though, someone who's a former player, just because that from my experience watching how the league works, guys like Desai tend to want to hire people they have familiarity with in terms of being former players. So I don't know if there's a former player that Desai had in like Chicago, for example, who might be a coach now. Typically, that's how a lot of these situations go. It's typically when you have a guy like Sean Desai, who, by the way, he's 39 years old, turns 40 in April. I don't know who specifically might be that guy. Again, he was in Chicago for, I got to double check how many years he was there. Because he was there for a while in Chicago. I mean, he was there for 2013 to 2021. I mean, that's almost an entire decade in one spot. He was in Miami for a year. He was at Temple for 5 years. He's in Seattle for 1 year. So he's a guy who I don't know exactly who he's drawing from in terms. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about guys like Mike Pettin could join the staff, which could be like the veteran guy to give him some advice. I know that Ed Donatel is a guy that he worked with in the past. Is he someone they turn around and say, hey, can you be the Nick Fangio consultant for Desai this year? I mean, Brandon Staley worked with Sean Desai in Chicago as well, just to give you some context of why the Eagles look at Desai as a guy who can be a D coordinator because he's worked with so many different people over the years. He is a direct descendant from the Nick Fangio tree in the NFL. So, maybe there is someone that I don't know about. So, James, I can't give you a straight answer on who the linebacker coach should be, but I personally think that Denard Wilson should stay with the Eagles. If I were him, I wouldn't go and take some other job and get out of here. Okay. Jeff in Ocean City chimes in at 609-403-0977. There's 2 points he has. He says, will the Sixers lose their third straight or come up with a big road win? Man, I hope they get a win tonight. That win on Monday should have never have happened. And the Saturday loss, I think, still stings for a lot of Sixer fans. Tonight, the key is going to be the turnovers. You got to cut down the turnovers. Look, I don't care that Embiid has a history of turning the ball over. He's got to play smarter. And for all the people who have told me a million times that James Harden has high basketball intelligence, games like Monday make me question that. And I want to hear about how these guys are tired. Look, I'm with guys like Kevin McHale and Charles Barkley, the former players. You're playing basketball. It's not that hard of a job. So the Sixers got to go out there. The two keys for me tonight are you got to be smart with the ball and don't turn the ball over. And number two, you got to play efficient basketball. You got to play within yourself. Don't try to do more than you really are. So another texter says, aren't those gymnasts who get gold medals in the Olympics under 18? Yeah, but that's different because the Olympic model and the college athletics model was originally built on these athletes not being professionals. It's not being their job. And even though over the decades it has evolved into, for many of these young people, a full-time job, they are not treated in the same way that professional athletes are on like the NFL level or the NBA level, where it's a 24/7 job. And then when they're not on the job, they're basically left on their own to their own devices. When you are a gymnast, if anybody knows, like Dominic Moceanu's story from the 96 team or Nastia Lukin's story from the 2008 Olympic team, just to use a couple examples, or Simone Biles in recent years, these women have detailed multiple times how their childhood was not a childhood, that what they went through to become an Olympic elite athlete and to be at the success they did at the Olympic level, their lives were not their own. That their lives were literally planned out almost every minute of the day, from practice to eating to their schoolwork to everything that goes along with it. They didn't have the luxury to live life like professional athletes do. For example, the NBA or the WNBA. Olympic athletes don't really have lives in many circumstances. A guy like Michael Phelps, part of the reason why he had, the emotional and mental breakdown was because he spent so much of his life working toward this pinnacle of excellence. And when he got there, he felt hollow, he felt empty, he felt alone. And so, the Olympic gold medal is a completely different set of issues. And it is in part because they're still kids that they end up in that situation. Okay. It is because they are children that they are basically their whole lives are controlled. And same thing in college, by the way. College, a lot of it is structure. It's you have practice at this time, you have class at this time, you have study hall at this time, you have a weightlifting session at this time, you have all these things you're doing, And it's supposed to help, college supposed to help you transition from being a child to being an adult. And that's why so many people's lives are controlled. I think it's a little different when it comes to that. Texter says the 609-403-73. I'm very much against load management, but the NBA basically creates the need for it with this idiotic scheduling. The Sixers are on this road trip. You're right. You know, the load management is a huge problem, but when the NBA creates these road trips, it basically incentivizes the players to not want to play every game. And I doubt Embiid's going to play every game of this road trip. I think what's going to happen is Embiid's probably going to play 3 out of 5 games. He's going to play the Milwaukee game. He's going to play the Minnesota game. And he's going to play either tonight or tomorrow night in Dallas. And then he'll not play Indiana. And then we'll kind of go from there. I think Harden the same way. I think Harden doesn't play 2 of these games as well. So, I think that's just kind of where we're at right now. The texter's right. The NBA basically creates this environment. So, I think that what's frustrating about the Sixers is that you want to believe in this team because a lot of people like Embiid and they love Maxey. And, there's a lot of diehard Tobias Harris people out there. And there's a lot of people who love the beard, James Harden. And there's people who look at this team and they have all these likable players and these likable parts. George Niang has become a fan favorite. And they're just not at the same level of athletes as some of the other best teams in the league. Memphis, Boston, Milwaukee. These are teams with elite athletes. And the biggest difference between a team like Phoenix and Denver, who have some older or more plodding, slower players, is that those slower, older players are surrounded by younger freaks. It's the idea that, Jokic is not going to be running up and down the court with a breakneck speed, but he's got Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray surrounding him. It's that Kevin Durant and Chris Paul are getting old and they're both pretty much past their prime at this point, but they still have Ayton and Booker on the team to kind of make up the difference in terms of youth and athleticism. You look at a team like Milwaukee, Brook Lopez isn't some great athlete, but Giannis is, Drew Holiday is. So the problem with the Sixers is who's the special athlete that's going to supplement and add to what Embiid and Harden do. You thought that was going to be Maxey because Maxey is a young player, but he's pretty much it. I mean, Maxey and Melton are really the only, legitimate young athletes on this team. Tobias Harris, James Harden, they're both in their 30s. Joel Embiid, he basically is guaranteed to miss about 10, 12 games every season. So maybe part of the problem with the Sixers is maybe they lean so hard into the veteran experience category, they forgot to fill the other voids. By the way, they missed the deadline because Nerlens Noel, he was released by the Detroit Pistons. They could have brought him to be the backup center. Instead, it's Dwayne Dedmon and Montrezl Harrell. Yeah, that's a lot of doom and gloom to finish the show. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll get you tomorrow, Sixers tonight at 7:30.
Sunday on ESPN Radio.
Bounces it off the glass, flushed by Davis.
Both the Los Angeles Lakers and the Golden State Warriors are fighting for a spot in the postseason, and they go head-to-head in L.A. this weekend.
Outside Thompson for 3, it's good. Are you kidding?
The Golden State Warriors at the Los Angeles Lakers. Coverage begins Sunday at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
It's the NBA on 97.3 ESPN.